Don't ever get old, dude. My back hurts so bad. Let's get this started. Welcome to my hopefully weekly production of video reviews for, I guess, my guns. I don't know where this is going. Basically, every week I'm going to try to release a new video on one of my builds or one of my guns, and it's going to be released on Monday. So hopefully, you're coming back from an exciting weekend, starting work, and what do you know? There's a new video. Today, I'm going to do kind of an overview of my night gun. If you watched the previous video, I did an 11.5-inch Hodge gun that is a day rifle. So in contrast, I like to have a gun for night vision. I do quite a bit of night vision shooting. And so this one I have dedicated for kind of close range stuff. This one, it has a lot of features that are biased towards night fighting, or I'm not that cool. night shooting. Okay, I'm just an average sports enthusiast for running and gunning, I guess. This is my 11.5-inch build for my night gun, and this one is basically a lot of just random parts. It's funny for me because I was really into cloning guns for a really long time, so I have like Mark 18s, and I have some clone builds that I enjoyed putting together, but we're following a pretty strict recipe. So this is one of the first guns I've actually built that I wanted it to be primarily for, I guess, comfort or usability, right? So it didn't have to follow a really specific thing. Like some of my guns have A2 grips on them, and I don't really mind A2 grips, but at the same time, there are a lot of aftermarket choices that are much better ergonomically. Reptilia being, my go-to grip. So I have a Reptilia CQG on this gun. So basically, this is one of the first times I've actually built a gun that everything on it is either purpose selected or it's for my own pleasure or comfort, which is kind of strange for me, but it's nice because since it is a very comfortable gun to shoot, everything is oriented to my body shape, the way that I use it. So without further ado, let's get into the build, and I'll show you what's going on. So this is the same RC2 that I had on the 11.5. I don't have a million Surefire cans, so I'm rocking the Surefire RC2 on many different guns. As long as you got the muzzle devices, you can just swap them out accordingly. This one is actually a closed tine war comp. On my other 11.5, I have a closed tine flash hider. This one has the ports. I'm not loving the war comps because I do shoot a lot suppressed, and I don't know that the benefit is really there. So I personally wouldn't necessarily recommend, if you're looking for Surefire muzzle devices, to get the war comp. For some people, it might make a big difference, but that's what I like. And I like the closed tine stuff as usual. You know me, I typically don't really run open tine stuff.
You gotta seal them labyrinths, homie.
Them labyrinths be sealed. Not on this gun though. Let's move on forward. As you can see right here, I've got a bunch of crap just loaded up on the front of the gun. MAWL C1 Plus, in my opinion, one of the best lasers on the market. This is a great one. Even the civilian, lower powered one is pretty impressive under conditions. I would say if you shoot and you're actually doing dynamic type shooting, then it actually makes a lot of sense to have them all. If you do not do a lot of dynamic shooting and you're just shooting on a flat range, or you just want to look at pretty fun lasers, then, full power PEC, D-Ball A3, Holosun lasers, they'll all just have a laser for you, but really in the ergonomics, usage of switching modes, and also the illuminator patterns, it's pretty awesome. Really hard to explain or convey in a video like this. If you do a little bit of research and you actually go out and shoot a lot and you need to change your settings quickly without looking at your gun, right now I think the MAWL is the king. On this gun, I am running a Surefire, it's the M640 Pro Light. I'm not using any of the dual fuels or anything. This is just their standard model, and then I've got a DS00 on the back. I've got a little bit of cable management. So if you can see this here, this one's a forward controls and TNVC collaboration, PCM, and this one is basically just to cinch down your cable. And I've got an Arson machine cable, I guess, M-lock tie there. So my Unity switch connects to the light. And so basically, is that turning on? It's not. Oh, there we go. There you go. It just takes a second for it to activate.
Light, bro.
Yeah. So I've got my Unity switch on the top there. And then in case that doesn't work, I can reach over and I can grab and activate with the DS00.
So the Pro mount you flipped upside down, right? And that way you can flip the Pro mount down to be able to access them all better.
Yes. Yeah, so because the maul is reversible for right or left-handed users, the turret is kind of in a weird spot for right-handed users. You have your windage control right here, and then your elevation control is actually on the bottom of the maul because it needs to be that way for the head to be oriented correctly if it's in the left-hand configuration. Because of that, having a Pro light that you can rotate out of the way allows me to quickly access the turrets. I don't think that's entirely necessary. You could definitely just take your light off and then slave your laser or zero your laser however you prefer. But it is very convenient to be able to just rotate my light down out of the way, adjust the turrets, and then just rotate it back up. So on this side, got the Unity hot button, Picatinny, and it fits perfectly in front of the fire buttons for the maul. Really nice in the sense that the controls being right here, I can actuate my light as well as the laser buttons, and I can actually activate both simultaneously or switch between them very quickly. So the alignment on here is very convenient. It's almost like they designed it for that. As you can see, my favorite setup is to always have my front sight super far rear mounted. So I've got a Magpul Pro steel front sight here, and I have it reversed so it's actually facing the backwards position, because if I shift my thumb back here, I can actually push it up like that. And then I have the rear sight that's built into the Unity fast mount. So that's my iron sight. Once again, I'm just loving those super short sight radiuses because nobody shoots with irons. So yeah, that's pretty much my iron sight setup. All of this is resting on a Hodge S-Lock rail. This is the only item that is Hodge Defense that is on this gun. So this is my hodgepodge gun. I've got the rail sitting on a 11.5-inch BRT suppressor optimized barrel. So the port sizing on this one's pretty small, and that's primarily because I basically only shoot this gun suppressed almost always, which is why the war comp doesn't make any sense. Anyway, because I shoot this gun suppressed all the time, I like the porting on the BRT suppressor optimized barrel because it just reduces a lot of the gas to the rear. So when I'm shooting, I'm not getting a bunch of gas in the face, or as much as you would if you had standard porting on your barrel. This does have some drawbacks. So for one thing, if you are planning on running the gun unsuppressed, it's pretty difficult, especially if you're shooting standard, low pressure, 55 grain ammo. Right now, I've got a white Springco spring in here, and I believe it's either a carbine or an H1 buffer. Carbine buffer and a Springco white spring. So the Springco white springs are typically just a little bit stronger than a mil-spec spring. Even in that configuration, sometimes the gun may not lock back on the last shot when you're shooting without the suppressor. With a suppressor, it works totally fine, and it's actually really soft shooting, and I get very little gas to the face. So that is something to consider if you're going to go that route. I actually don't 100% remember what gas block is under here. Oh, actually, I can see it. It's a Sons of Liberty Gunworks low profile gas block.
Hell yeah, brother.
That's the gas block I'm running under there. And then I pretty much just have a standard Melanite gas tube. I'm running a Forward Controls Design QD cup. I really like these just because they're a steel cup, so they might not wear out as quickly as maybe an aluminum cup would. Does add a few ounces, but hey, just put some more weight on the bar. I've got a Sierra Tac 2-point sling in multicam black. Once again, my favorite sling, so you're probably gonna see a lot of parts recycled on a lot of my builds because it's my personal preference. So this might not be the best thing for you, but in my opinion, this is the best thing in the world. Definitely check them out. I think Spiritus Systems currently makes them. And of course, on the back side, we have it connected to a classic CRT. Okay, I kind of jumped around a little bit, so we're not really doing tip to butt on this guy. However, we'll go back to the front here. So if you notice, I actually have a very low profile QD socket right back here. And you may ask yourself, why do I have a QD socket right here when the sling is attached to the front? Well, one, it's very low profile. I like it. You can actually mount some accessories across it. So for example, some iron sights or other accessories that, they basically, because this is so low profile, you can actually mount things across it. So that's one thing that it's kind of like a very low obstruction for any other accessories you're going to mount around it. But one of the reasons I like to have it there is because sometimes you want the front side of the gun freed up. So I don't want my sling to be moving around here while I'm trying to manipulate the gun on the front side. And two, it's, well, I won't get into too much detail about that, but say you're down a hallway and you need to stay in the hallway for a while, it's very convenient to have a QD socket there. I've got some controls here with the Weapon Outfitters CMS, and this is actually not currently available yet as we're making this video. And this one is kind of basically they're in like a prototype phasing where they made a bunch of different colors and they're experimenting with ano. So this one's a blue ano one. You might ask why I have a blue anode one on a tan and black rifle. Well, I actually also use this gun as a Sims gun. I actually have a bunch of parts to make it Sims capable. Normally, this gun runs a BCM bolt carrier group, but if I'm running Sims, I'll just pop the bolt carrier out and I will replace it with this Speer Force on Force blue bolt. So this blue bolt lets me run simunition rounds. So if I am participating in Force on Force, Op 4 stuff, or if I'm Blue 4, then basically I'll be running simunition rounds. So these are basically big boy paintball. I've been chewed up by a lot of these and they friggin' hurt, but it's a lot of fun. You get to use your actual firearm to shoot these projectiles at other people. Now, the thing about, shooting simunitions, it's not for everybody. And I don't necessarily say that you can't get it, but it is a little difficult to get a hold of because it's primarily for law enforcement and military training. And so if you have the chance to participate in this kind of stuff, and as a civilian, I feel very honored to be able to participate in those kind of things. And I actually get to use this equipment relatively often. It's a lot of fun, but it's also a serious training thing because you're actually pointing real guns at people. So just keep that in mind is if you are going to do this kind of stuff, even recreationally, just make sure you get the proper PPE so you don't want to shoot someone's eye out. I mean, it can really happen. So yeah, that's why I have this CMS on here in the blue color because it's my Sims gun. Usually when I'm running simunitions, I'll run Duramags in blue. They actually make these on the reg, but it's really nice to be able to just have blue magazines to indicate for training purposes. These are actually regular magazines. They're not special for simunitions or anything, but because they're blue, it's just a really nice distinction. And then I also have a blue can. I actually have two different lengths, but this one's my favorite because it has our logo laser engraved on there, but it's made by Blue Can Training. And these are designed for simunition use. So you actually buy the appropriate gasket for the muzzle device that you have. And that way you can simulate the length of your suppressor when you're doing force on force without actually running simunitions through your real suppressor. You just don't want to get this thing jammed up with a bunch of sims if they happen to go awry. So running this, as you can see, it's a big open aluminum tube. It's in the blue color, so it's another indication this is being used for training. So that's why I have the blue CMS on here, which is super sick and probably not going to be available. So yeah, pretty cool. I have, my blue mags and then also have a blue bolt. And the cool thing about the blue bolt is, once again, it will just pop right into your receiver. So you leave your charging handle in there. Now it's basically Sims conversion ready to go. So one of the easiest guns to convert to simunitions, all you need to run it is the bolt. So the blue bolt, interestingly enough, it does not allow you to close the dust cover because you want to be able to see that there's a blue bolt in here at all times. So it might be a little bit weird for the guys who are consistently trying to close their dust covers. It doesn't allow you to, since it's a safety issue. So that way, if you ever see people who are using blue cans or blue mags and like trying to pretend like they do force on force, but their dust covers are closed, probably means they don't have a blue bolt. You might have one that does, but there are a lot of bolts out there that doesn't let you close it. So that's kind of an indicator that maybe they're not using simunition bolts. Let's continue on to the rear. This is a BCM upper. It's standard, nothing special about it, just your regular old forged upper. And I think this one's a Blem one, so I got it for a little cheaper. There's like some scratch marks on the side, but because I run this gun, I don't really care. It rests on top of a Loyal 9 manufacturing lower. This is actually made by Sons of Liberty, and this one's kind of a cool one. They actually did this with a collaboration with Direct Action Resource Center. So Darcy allowed them to put the logo on the side. So they kind of did, like a little partnership thing there, and they came in tan. I actually really like that this gun is two-tone. This is actually my only gun that is two-tone, which adds a little flavor to the gun. I think sometimes having all black rifles can be kind of boring. And, if you paint your guns, that's like extra badass. But the two-tone, I think, is just a nice color smattering with the tan on the front here, the tan on the lower, the tan on the stock, and then a bunch of black stuff, and then blues put in there. So this is kind of like my most, I guess, wildly colored weapon. So going back to some of the night vision features, I have a Gungear magwell on here. The flared magwell on here is nice because if you're trying to do a reload and it's in the dark, nods down, having the flare, it's just a little bit of assistance to get the mag in the gun. I don't necessarily think you need one. If you train and practice and you're basically a machine on the range, then you probably don't need a magwell. But for me, I want to make things a little bit easier when it's in the dark. And, you can practice this just by closing your eyes and trying to see if you can get it in there. I can't even do it. But basically, the magwell's there to assist me getting it in. And this one's kind of slim. So if you're doing a tack reload, you can actually do a sideways tactical reload. Honestly, you should just do the L-shaped one. But if you are so inclined, you can actually do it pretty easily just having the mags side by side, because the outer dimension of the Gungear magwell is pretty slick. And so if your hands are big enough to be able to put a finger in between, as I'm doing like this, you can do that tactical reload pretty easily. I do like that a lot. I'm running a Geissele SSA in here. I think the SSA is the perfect balance for just any type of shooting in general. It's not super, super, super light for more of the precision work, and that way you don't have to worry too much about having a trigger that's going to go off if you blow on it wrong. But it's also not a super heavy mil-spec trigger. That's definitely something that I've learned the hard lesson of running mil-spec triggers for a really long time, and then now I'm kind of spoiled with the Geissele triggers, but they're nice. The SSA has been around for a long time. I'd say if you don't have an upgraded trigger, it's definitely a great choice. For the selector, I've got a Badger Universal 90-degree single-side selector. So this one is basically just a standard selector, except Badger puts a little red tab on there. And so you're paying a lot of money for a little bit of red paint. Does it actually give you better performance? That's arguable, but you're going to look cool. So I think paying for the flex, pretty worth it. You've got the red tab on this side, and it also indicates when you flip it into fire, back into safe. Kind of cool for a guy who is looking directly at your safety. I can see it well. So if I need to know what mode I'm in, I can just look down and see it. But it is a really nice safety, and there's a lot of different choices for the types of safeties out there. 90-degree selector for this application, I think, is great. But having 60-degree, having 45-degree, whatever your preference is, this is mine on this gun, and I think it's a great choice. I've got just a standard lower parts kit in here. As I mentioned before, I run just a standard BCM bolt carrier in it when I'm shooting actual ammunition. This charging handle here is a Radian Raptor SL. This one's got metal latches and it's the SL, so it has the shorter wing base. I like the shorter wing bases because if you've got kit on, sometimes with the wider wings, your charging handle can snag on your kit and it could potentially dislodge the round or even eject that round or just cause potential issues there if you're letting your gun rest in front of you. I think that's kind of a bad situation. So I would say having the shorter wing base is kind of cool. And this one is actually a clear anodized one. So it looks tan, but it's kind of got a little bit of that metallic sheen. Underneath it, I have a forward controls, low profile forward assist. Low profile forward assist. Yeah.
Low drag forward assist.
Low drag forward assist.
Exactly what they call it.
Yes. It is actually what they call it. But this one has the all angles, so it's got the dimples. To be honest, I just wanted to try the dimples. I think the serrated one is probably better for actual use if you... It's 2023. Do people still use forward assists? Anyway, the all angles dimpled looks cool. Wanted to try something different. I've also got forward controls castle nut and the forward controls slim H1 QD cup on the back here for the end plate. And I also have a winter forward controls trigger group here in FDE. Just lets you get your fat sausage fingers in there to actuate the trigger. And then, like I said before, Reptilia CQG grip in black. My favorite buffer tube of all time, the LMT dry lubricated, is it dry lubricated? Dry film lubricated in the sexy gray color buffer tube. And then a carbine buffer, and a white Spring Coast spring, and then the CTR. The king! Fight me, mate. So that is pretty much it. Oh, I forgot to mention, I am running a Unity fast height mount for my Aimpoint Micro T1. Yes, this is a T1. I have it marked clearly 50, 200, 0 for 5.56, 55 grain. I have forward controls, adjustable cups so that you can use a flathead screwdriver to adjust the turrets. Don't recommend them. They're kind of crappy, but if you need to spend the money for some reason, buy them, I guess. But they don't work that well, unfortunately, as much as I wish they did, because it makes it so, one, you don't have to unscrew the caps and then adjust, and then you potentially lose your Aimpoint caps. It's supposed to eliminate this by having a flathead turret that you can just use any flathead tool to adjust the turret, and the cap that goes around it is supposed to stay put. However, when you're adjusting the turret, the cap sometimes rotates and you might loosen the cap, and then when you retighten the cap down, it moves the turret. So in my opinion, I don't really think this is a good upgrade, but it's already installed and it's zeroed, so I'm not going to touch it again. So I think it's okay. And I also have a Knights Armament double battery end cap. So if you have one of these on a T1 or a T2, it basically extends your battery life by double. So normally they're about 5 years battery life on a 2032 battery. However, when you have this cap, you would put a second battery inside the cap, flip it around on the backside so it doesn't actuate. And then when one battery dies, you would open it up, flip the batteries around. Now you've got another 5 years on standby. So you've got 10 years effective battery life on the go. Do you need this? No. Is it a flex? Yes, because they're hard to get. But it's also one of those things where I could see 10 years down the road, somebody is shooting their aim point and then the battery dies and they never change the spare tire. And then they're just stuck with 2 dead 2032 in the aim point. So I could definitely see that being a thing. Remember to change your batteries. You probably need to change your batteries like once a year, realistically speaking, if you're serious. If you're an operator, you're checking it before every mission. You're putting fresh CR123 batteries in your light before every mission because you don't want it to die out in the field, even if they're only 90% down. You should be changing your batteries every day. when you
Every
wake
day.
up. Yeah, fresh battery. Just throw away those 99% ready to go batteries every day. Anyway, so that's pretty much the overview of my 11.5-inch night gun. I really am not going to change anything on this gun. I actually ran this configuration of gun at Darcy for LETC 1. That's basically their entry-level law enforcement counterterrorism course, and it was a blast, and this thing served me very well. It ran flawlessly, which is very interesting because sometimes people can have issues running simunitions through their guns, like maybe if the barrel profile on the inside is a little weird, then sometimes the sim rounds can stack up inside the barrel, or sometimes certain parts just may not be totally compatible. So you do really want to test your blue bolt in the gun that you use for simunitions before you're in the room taking rounds and you're pulling the trigger and nothing's coming out of your gun. You really don't want to find out whether it works right then and there or not. This gun served me real well, and so I'm very happy with it, and it's been my trusty old reliable steed. So yeah, just to show you another one of my builds. I hope you liked it, and if you have any questions about the build, specifically like why I do, certain things or whatnot, I'm happy to explain further. Just let me know in the comments below. Let me know, if you like this format or if you want to see more of these overview videos. I've got tons of other guns I can do, so pretty happy to share that with you guys. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.
Super crisp. So if you have it where like everything else is blurry except for it's super crisp right here, that's actually probably ideal.